All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Paige Jennings. I'm one of the National Fellowship Coordinators and National Fellowships and Scholar Programs. We are located in Decisor over on the Horseshoe, and we help students apply for and identify a wide range of nationally competitive awards, including the U.S. Student Program for the Fulbright. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. I hope you notice in this top right corner, we have this lovely new stamp. We recently were announced as a top producing institution for U.S. students for our 2020-2021 grantees. We had 10 students who were offered Fulbright grants, and we are very excited. I will say that not all of them were able to go abroad because of the pandemic. I know that was a question that I just saw in the chat, but we will get into all of those things and kind of the general what is Fulbright, and more specifically what the process looks like at U of SC. I am joined by 3 of our faculty Fulbright program advisors. We call them FPAs, as well as some National Fellowship advisors. We all work together as a team to help you through the application process and make your application as strong as it could possibly be. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and let's start with Dr. Torres.
Hi, everyone. I'm Miriam Torres. I am a faculty in the Department of Epidemiology and Biostatistics in the Arnold School of Public Health, and I'm the director of the Consortium for Latino Immigration Studies. I enjoy working with you in whatever grant you are applying for, and but of course, Paige is the boss, and she tells us what we need to do. But we are really excited that many people are joining us to this informational session. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Torres. And next we'll have Dr. Kissel.
Hi, I'm Professor Laura Kissel, and I teach in the Media Arts program at in the School of Visual Art and Design. I had a Fulbright myself a few years ago. I went to China, so I understand a lot about how Fulbright works, and I also served on the National Review Committee for Fulbright acceptances, I guess, or jury decisions. So Paige will explain how that works, but essentially I feel like I have some good insight into what the National Review Committees are looking for, specifically as it relates to the creative arts and filmmaking. So if any of you are interested in going abroad for an arts-related focus through Fulbright, you might likely be paired up with me. But yeah, so anyway, that's it for now, and I'll hand it back to Paige.
And I think we have Dr. Purcells as well.
Sorry, there we go. Hi, thank you all for joining us this afternoon. My name is Jeff Purcells. I'm in the Department of Languages, Literatures, and Cultures, currently running the French program, but I've worked with a Fulbright in helping students go to many variety of countries over the last several years, and continue to help both with to advise on all of the various Fulbrights are available. And so we look forward to working with you. We're glad to know you're here now. It's never too early to start working on these. I myself also was a Fulbright, but way before internet, so it doesn't count. Back in the day, back when we were sending back letters on stone. So anyway, I'll look forward to talking more with you as we go through this. Thanks, Paige.
It totally counts. It's relevant. So these are the people who are going to be working with you on your applications. Once you finish the preliminary application, we'll assign you a FPA, so Faculty Fulbright Program Advisor, and they will work with you alongside us to help you craft your application materials. So what is the Fulbright U.S. Student Program? And I apologize if some of these slides have kind of mushed together, but essentially it is a program that is sponsored by the U.S. State Department's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. They're administered by IAE, which is the Institute of International Education. And it is kind of a soft diplomacy program with the goal of increasing mutual understanding between the people of the U.S. and other countries abroad through international exchange. The countries are kind of in agreement with the U.S. to have these programs. So each country's offering is different, and we'll talk about that throughout this presentation. As you ask questions, the answer will likely be, it depends. Each country's different, but they are bilateral agreements between the U.S. and a foreign country to kind of have this back and forth exchange. So there are Fulbrighters from other countries coming here, and then the U.S. sends people to other countries as well. So the Fulbright program really wants to show the diversity of the United States. Like I said, it's a diplomatic program in a way, and they want to show what the U.S. really looks like. So they really value diversity and inclusion. They look at a lot of different factors of a applicant's identity to make sure that they're having cohorts that do really represent the U.S. So they are open to everyone, regardless of their race, color, national origin, sex, age, religion, all of these things that are listed here. So these are things that you don't want to shy away from in your application. You want to highlight those things because it is a priority for them in their selection as well. In the same vein, there are a lot of different affinity groups that are popping up in the Fulbright world, and they have this nice little Fulbright Diversity Collective. Fulbright Access is for students with disabilities. Fulbright Families is for non-traditional, kind of more mature applicants who have families going with them. You'll see that certain countries will provide dependent support. They have Fulbright Latinx, Fulbright Lotus for students who are from Asian Pacific Island communities. Fulbright Noir is for Black and African American Fulbrighters. Fulbright Prism is for students who are part of the LGBTQ+ community, and then Fulbright Salam is for students who are Muslim or practicing Islam. So they have lots of different groups. These groups have really well-developed social media pages, and they can connect you with past recipients of these awards who identify the same as you do, maybe, if you want to hear about their experiences in certain countries. They have a lot of resources that maybe aren't even fully available to the State Department. So we really encourage students to look into these. If you have any questions, I'm quite well connected with some of these, and I will be happy to put you in contact with any of them. So general eligibility, a couple of people have already asked about this, but the main thing is that you need to be a U.S. citizen by time of application, and you need to have your bachelor's degree or equivalent in hand by the start of the grant. So we have a lot of students who apply as graduating seniors, but recent graduates, graduate students, and early career professionals are also eligible and welcome to apply. There's no advantage or disadvantage based on how much time you've been in school. So if you've gotten a master's, are you more competitive than undergrads? That doesn't necessarily matter. But again, each country is different, and they will tell you what they're looking for. So you see that country-specific requirements there. They are looking at things from country to country. So make sure you read the country pages very carefully. The one thing that's kind of the same across the board is that you should not have a doctorate at the time of application. If you do, you should be applying for the Scholar program. So some students will go on Google and type in Fulbright Scholarship or Scholar, and then they will be led to the Scholar page. That is completely different for the U.S. student program. So make sure you look for the U.S. student program if you do not have a PhD. There are two main award types. The first one, the kind of umbrella, is the study research grant. So those are independent research programs, study, so you can get a master's degree or maybe even a PhD abroad, or you can practice a creative arts. So that is still under that study research grant type. The other one is the English teaching assistantship. So we just call them ETAs. And this is where you go abroad and teach English in a classroom. In some cases, you will be the main teacher. In other countries, you may just be an assistant. So it's called English teaching assistantship, but in some cases, you will be the main teacher. And again, the country page will give you that information. So we have students who are successful in both, apply for both. We have a good mix of all different kinds of applicants. So yeah, I know some students have difficulty deciding which grant type is the best fit for them. So please come and talk to us. We can give you some hints and tips and kind of see what may be the best fit for you and your personal and professional goals. Yes, Sydney, this is a great question. So can you get both grants? So you can only apply for one grant type to one country per competition cycle. So that was going to come a bit later, but worth mentioning now, that is one of the first steps, is really spending time on the Fulbright website and getting an idea of what's available and what makes the most sense for you, because your entire application is going to be tailored towards that specific country and program that is offered. Award benefits. So again, each country, the dollar amount will look different from country to country. There is not one standard stipend for all Fulbrighters all around the world, but each grantee is guaranteed round-trip airfare. They will get some kind of living expenses, again, different from country to country, but you'll also get accident and sickness benefits. And there's some other possible benefits, like I mentioned before, the dependent support, research allowance, tuition, language lessons. So there's like a critical language enhancement award that is offered in a handful of countries, different enhancement activities to do maybe some community programming or something like that, and then disability related accommodations as well. Post-grant, there is a very robust Fulbright network of alumni. You get to be a part of the alumni database that is out there through the State Department's website. And also you will be eligible for 12 months of non-competitive eligibility hiring status with the federal government. So if you're interested in working for the federal government and you kind of want to get like a cut to the front of the line, this may be a good option for that. You also get a lifetime Fulbright email address, and you get to be a part of the Fulbright Association. So lots of benefits there, and I don't even think that's an exhaustive list of all the benefits that you get from being part of the Fulbright program. But yeah, these are just a few of the main things that you get if you are awarded and participate in a Fulbright. All right, so the application. So once you've made the decision to go ahead and apply, this is the main chunk of work that you'll be spending your time on over the summer. And this is what our wonderful faculty Fulbright program advisor will be helping you with. And I'll have them kind of touch upon the parts that they spend a lot of their time advising you on and giving you hints and tips in a bit. But generally, you have to go into the online application, and you need to have your basic personal data and information about your program. Under that, it includes an abstract, so a short summary of your proposal, whether that's I'm going to go teach abroad in Thailand for a year, or if it's I'm going to go and get my master's in neuroscience in the Netherlands. You have to have that short summary. Host country engagement, they are really wanting you to get in and engage with the culture. That's the point of the program, is to kind of develop the mutual understanding between the US and your host country. So if you're just doing research all the time or just teaching all the time, you don't necessarily have the chance to do this. So this is a part that students sometimes forget to the last minute, but hopefully you're thinking about it earlier as you start your application. Yes, Riley, I'll get to the timeline a little bit. Again, the spring semester is our recruitment time right now. The application will not be due, the final application won't be due until October, but our campus deadline is before classes start. So the day before, I think, is August 18th, but you'll be doing most of your writing and editing throughout the summer. I hope that answers the question. Yep. And again, with the basic personal data, your future plans. So they'll ask you to write a short summary of what you plan to do after Fulbright. So what are your next steps after you complete your grant year? The essays, there are 2 main essays, and I'm actually going to have maybe Dr. Purcell's talk about the essays because he spends lots and lots of time reviewing them. And maybe Dr. Purcell's, could you talk about what role you play in helping with essays and any hints and tips that you have about these 2 different essays that are the bulk of the application?
Sure, and I hope the others will jump in as well, as we all have different kind of takes on these and what makes a good essay. But our point is to try and make you look good, because if you look good, we look good, which is what this is all about, of course. So no, but the idea is we want to help you. It's your essay, it's your application, but we're really here to make you use our experience to help you write as persuasive an essay as possible to the average reader, right? Because your committees are going to be made up of people who are familiar with your country, of course, or heavily invested in the country to which you're applying, but they may not be in your field. And so you have to be very clear to write in plain speech, as they say, and we're here to help you. And that is often very helpful with someone such as myself, who was very unlikely to know much about your field. So, but you need to pitch that to us, and we're to help you do that. And the essays are very different. They are probably one of the most time-consuming aspects of the application, and I've worked with students where they've gotten it the first or second time where they had a great draft, and others that have taken a few more, 12, 15 times, but they've still gotten it in the end. And the idea is we're to help you do that, and we'll be as invasive about that as possible. I mean, and as you'll allow us to be, all the while respecting the fact that it's your voice. But just to distinguish between the 2 essays that you'll be working on is the English teaching assistantship is in some ways there are specific questions you need to address, and it's a 1-page document. And then the research one is much more involved. As you can see, it's a 2-page document, the research or the study grant, where you have to justify what you want to do and literally sell it, right? You're basically selling why you're the person to do this, and why you're going to be the best at doing it. And so when we help you draw that out, and we will meet with you online, or ideally, and if things shape up, in person, to have a chance to kind of talk to you and draw that out of you and draw out the best side of yourself. We've often find that the wonderful thing about the discussions is that there are things that come out in talking that don't come out when you just sit down and write on paper. So and we'll say, wait, what about that? Bring that out, play that up, bring that up. So that's kind of what we do for those. And then the personal statement gives you each the same for for all the applications, but the idea that you have 1 page to sort of say something else about yourself, because with very few exceptions, there's not going to be any follow-up from these countries. They're not going to get to meet you in person before they make their decision about that. Different countries do have some options for phone interviews, I believe. If I'm right about that page, I think the UK does certain ones, but normally not. So this is your one chance to kind of make yourself appealing to them as a person. And we'll talk with you about that and help you bring out that side of yourself as well. So these are the kind of things that really rely on us, the faculty advisors, to help you with as a willing ear and a good audience for helping you shape that.
Thank you so much. Yes, so that is the bulk of the application. We'll have different checkpoints throughout the summer to kind of keep you on track. But yes, that's what you'll spend most of your time going over, and each of you will be assigned a faculty FPA to help you go through those things throughout the summer. The next main piece is the reports and references. So you'll need a foreign language evaluation if required. So again, it's country to country. Some countries do not have any language requirement, and others will say you need to have at least, an intermediate level of German or something like that. You know, it's all about feasibility and making sure that you are able to do what you're proposing to do. And so I know students will have questions about that, particularly if you have a language that you don't know how to get an evaluation for. So maybe you're a heritage speaker and you're like, I don't even know who can evaluate me on this. You'll do a personal evaluation, and we will try to help to find someone who can do a formal evaluation for you. But don't worry too much if you're unable to figure that out right away. Next are the 3 references. So you'll need 3 letters of recommendation. If you're applying for the English teaching assistantship program, you will have forms. So make sure when you request those letters, you tell your letter writers that it is a form that they're filling out. There are questions that they have to respond to. It's not a traditional letter that they just kind of write whatever they're feeling. It is a form, so you don't want to waste their time and have them write that and then they realize, oh, there's a form. You will register them in the Fulbright website and they'll get that information. So they should know that it's a form once you register them. And then the last thing is yes.
Paige, give me a second. Those letters, since you are going to work during the summer on the application, and if you are making the decision, try to identify your those professors who are going to write the letters as soon as possible, because if people are 9 months, like the majority of us, they may not do it quickly, and sometimes this becomes an issue. Not necessarily that the Fulbright application is not gonna be submitted, but because at the end, and sometimes at the last minute, your professors are submitting those letters, and then you need to remind them, once you know a little bit more, remind them that the deadline is the university deadline. And I know, we work with those professors, and I know Paige and Jen, they suffer a lot, but try to identify who is going to give a strong recommendation as soon as you have an idea. And sometimes you are close to those professors, so you can say, I'm thinking of applying to Fulbright. Would you please leave a space for me to write a letter? So I just wanted to make sure of that.
Thank you so much. And Kira, I saw your question. Great question. No, not all 3 have to come from professors. We recommend at least once. For our study and our research applicants, the more who can speak to your academic skills, the better. But if you're applying for an English teaching assistantship, and let's say, for example, you are a tutor at the Student Success Center, you can get your supervisor to write a letter, and they would probably be a great person to do that because they can speak to your ability to teach people. So yeah, we actually have, as part of our first draft deadline, which is sometime in May, we also asked for you to give us a list of your potential letter writers so we can talk with you about them. So go ahead and keep a list going, and we will talk to you about, whether we think that's a strong fit or not, and you can tell us what you think they'll be able to contribute to your application. Dr. Torres, if you want to continue and talk about the campus committee evaluation and what that is, and kind of what that looks like. We have students always asking us, like, I know this is kind of a nominated competition. Is there any chance that you guys won't select me? No. So we're kind of going to give you a little background on that, if you don't mind, Dr. Torres.
Yeah, no problem. So through this whole process, the National Fellowship and program scholars, Paige and Jen and Novella and everybody, they had set up this process to support you. And this campus evaluation is one step more of that process. And what it is your faculty program advisor plus someone from the staff, Paige and others, and a country expert and hopefully an area expert of where you are applying, what the type of grant you are applying, they interview you. They ask you to make the case for your application to basically convince us that what you do, and believe it or not, what you want to do, believe it or not, many times what you tell us is not in your application. So we tell you, we give you comments, we ask you questions, and the whole idea is to strengthen the application. And we, based on that and the whole process, we write a summary of your strengths, that why Fulbright should send you to that country in that type of grant that you are applying. So it is very important, and I know you all take it very seriously. We do too, because we know all the comments that come from that meeting are to improve the application, and you will have time to get your application back and incorporate those comments from the meeting, from that interview.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes. So students always ask us, why is your deadline so much earlier than the national deadline? That's why, because we need to have time to look at your application, and we craft these committees to evaluate you. So we want to have your full application so that they can evaluate, ask you questions, so that you can then go back after your meeting with them and sharpen your application materials. All right, so the next piece, transcripts. We will ask for that. If you've studied abroad and you have, transfer credits, I will request those from the Education Abroad office. If you're a transfer student, you will need to get that from your past institution. But yeah, that's something that comes a little bit later. So for our study and research applicants, one of the biggest parts of this application is getting a affiliation letter. And so this is pretty much a letter of support from an institution in your host country that will support you in your studies or research. So if you're applying for a study grant, so you want to get a master's degree abroad, some countries will say it's not required, but we always recommend you getting a letter of support from someone. So that could be a faculty member, it could be maybe a program coordinator who you've spoken with about, getting admitted to the graduate program. Anyone that has spoken with you, maybe you've told them a bit about yourself, sent them your resume, that can say, I think this person would be a good fit for our program. We will welcome them and support them if they are accepted and if they were, funded by the Fulbright program. That process can be one of the longest and the most daunting for applicants. So we tell you to start early. We have a Blackboard website that has all those resources. We will show you how students have reached out in the past. So we have like example emails, example letters of affiliation themselves. If you're doing research, they might have information about different archives they'll give you access to, or lab resources. Whatever it is, we have examples and we can help you with that. Riley, I see that you have a question. You can go ahead and ask.
Yeah, thank you. Just one before I have to run to class. I was wondering if it would be advantageous, if you're applying for that, to ask someone like you've worked with before, or no, if they teach at like a university where you want to go.
Yeah, so we tell students all the time, especially if you've been to the country before or you're planning to go. So for example, if you're planning to study abroad this fall in your host country, try to make those connections while you're there. If you've taken classes with a specific faculty member abroad and you really like them and you'd like to go back there, yes, use your connections. Additionally, you should use your faculty connections here. So your faculty here, as you can see with just our three who are here, they have international connections. They know who's doing the research or the projects that would be interesting, in your field that is happening abroad. So if you're like, I don't really know where to go, or I don't even know how or who to connect with, talk to your faculty, because they might have some pretty good leads and can just connect you directly. Of course, we also have students who always cold call, cold email, whatever, and that works as well. But it would be advantageous to use your existing networks. The next piece, I'm sorry, did you have another question, Riley?
No, just saying thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem. The next piece, I'll have Dr. Kissel talk about, because she's the person who knows everything about the arts applicants. She has done a Fulbright, and she has worked with our students who are applying for creative arts grants. So Dr. Kissel, if you can talk about the supplementary materials that students usually put together.
Yeah, I'm just curious if there are any arts applicants on this call, like music, dance, filmmaking, photography. If you are, you can type it into the chat. But essentially, the arts applicants have a portfolio that they need to submit. Oh, graphic design, very good. Yeah, so you'll have to submit a portfolio of images, and usually there's a limit, to the number of images that you can submit, and it would probably depend upon the application, right, Paige? I can't quite remember that detail, but so for filmmaking, my memory is you get to have 2 sample works, but they can only be up to 6 minutes in length. So, they don't have a lot of time to watch, hour-long movies, but they just need to see a sample of what your capability is in the work, what level you're at in terms of your proficiency, and maybe if there's a relationship between the visual arts materials that you are showing in your portfolio and the work that you propose to do, that's ideal. So for example, one of the things I can remember when I served on the National Review Committee for Filmmaking is there was a young woman who applied to make a dance documentary, a dance film. And she had not majored in filmmaking, but she had actually already produced a dance film in Portland, Oregon, where she lived, and she did this as a collaborative community project, and as part of her application material, she had this film. So we were able to see that, oh, she's done something like this before, she has the technical skills to pull it off. This is very similar to what she proposes to do in India. So we were impressed enough to say, yes, we think that this applicant can carry out the work that they propose to do. So that's kind of how you need to be thinking for supplementary materials. Do they exhibit your competence in the discipline? Does the material have some kind of connection to what it is that you propose to do? And if so, I think there's also usually like a little place where you can write a description of the application material, so you can supply a short narrative to help guide the reviewers of your materials, to help them like read and see the work in a particular way. So let me see what got posted here. We have graphic design and dance education. Okay, very good. And I'm actually not as familiar with dance. I said it because there's an image of a dancer here on screen, but I don't know if they require actually a video of yourself dancing for dance abroad. That I would have to check, but you'll also see what the requirements are as you start to explore what the opportunities are at the Fulbright website.
Yeah, and we would love to have more arts applicants. So, I mean, you could totally go for the English teaching assistantship, or you can go the dance route. We had a music education student who won the English teaching assistantship grant to go to Germany. And she was also kind of like, do I want to go with the music, or do I want to go with the teaching? So yeah, possibilities are endless. We would love to see more people from creative backgrounds apply, because
tell your friends
tell your friends because they're really undersubscribed. They really are. And they're always saying, like, please send more to us. Yes. Yes. Okay, so Jen,
Great.
that
Jen.
they have no more than 10 minutes. Okay, great. Thank you. And I think there was a question about, do I have to be a teacher to be an ETA? The answer is absolutely not. You do not need to be a teacher at all. Again, the focus is more on that cultural exchange and engagement. They do want to see that you have skills to be a successful teacher abroad, but you can draw on a lot of different experiences. Like I said, tutoring, maybe you're in the like Buddies Beyond Boundaries program here and you have like an international student buddy who you help with English every now and then. Those are all good examples. So yes, and if you're learning another language yourself, you can draw on those things to talk about, you know, what you've learned about language learning, learning a second language yourself. So yes. I guess short answer is you do not have to be a teacher, you do not have to want to be a teacher. But yes. All right, so next, the factors in selection. So Fulbright really looks at applicants as a whole, and so they're not focusing really on one thing. So I know some students will say, well, I've never been abroad before, or I don't have a perfect GPA, or I, you know, haven't taught before, right? Can I apply for the English teaching assistantship? Yeah. So all of these different things are taken into consideration. But the first and foremost is the quality and feasibility of the proposal. Are you equipped to do what you are proposing to do? Does it make sense? And that even goes for the ETA application. So do you have the skills to be able to teach and to be able to thrive in the environment that you're proposing to go to? The next piece, academic and professional record. Yes, these things are important. So you don't have to have a perfect GPA. In fact, they don't really look at GPA when they're going through applications. When I've sat in on the review, they tell the reviewers not to focus on GPA. But if you are planning to go and do this very extensive project in a certain area of STEM and you have nothing on your transcript that says that you can do that, or you do have stuff in your transcript but you haven't really done well in certain courses, it goes back to the feasibility thing. Do they really think you can do this if you haven't done well in your coursework? So that's something to keep in mind. Personal qualifications. So kind of going back to life experience, that's the personal statement. So tell us where you come from, what experiences you have that are relevant, that'll help you be successful as a Fulbrighter. Language preparation, like I said, is different from country to country, but if you're proposing to do something where you are interviewing locals and you do not speak the language, it's probably not very feasible. And they also want to make sure that you can engage in the host culture. So to some degree, having an interest in the language is, you know, very important. They have other factors that they have established. The Fulbright Foreign Scholarship Board has their own list of things that they look for. And then, you know, the next one is kind of just like the Fulbright fit. Like, are you going to be able to be, you know, that cultural ambassador? Are you going to be a good representative of the US abroad? And then again, each country will have their own things that they're looking for. So please, I can tell you this a million times, but I'll tell you one more. Please look at the country page to see A, that you're eligible to apply, and B, that you are what they're looking for, right? Because you're going to be the most competitive for the country that makes the most sense for you, and they are looking for someone like you. So some countries will say, we have this really cool women in STEM program, so we would love if we could have some STEM majors to come be ETAs in our country. Or they will say, if you are in the country at the time of the application, so let's say you are studying abroad in France this fall, they might say on that page, if you're in country at time of application, so fall 2021, you're ineligible to apply. So please do not spend all of your time only to find out that you can't even apply. It has happened so many times. So you determine your eligibility. Yeah, and then again, desirability of achieving diversity, right? This is something that they take into consideration because they do want to have well-rounded cohorts. Yeah. Does anyone want to add anything? Maybe Dr. Kissel, since you have served on the national panel, to talk about, you know, what they're looking for and what they discuss. I mean, to some degree, you can't share those things, but generally, what are they looking for?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've served. I think the last time I did it was in 2016. I was actually there in New York for the panel the day after the election. And that was quite a time to be in New York, I have to say. But at any rate, it was it's always an interesting experience because you've as a reviewer, you've read all of the materials before you actually arrive to discuss all of the materials and applicants in person. And so everyone has their own perspective and opinion. And so it's usually about 3 or maybe 4 people on the committee, and each application is discussed and reviewed in detail. Usually they're scored ahead of time, so because we've all done our homework in advance before we arrive to the meeting, there's usually a kind of loose ranking, and then we go around and discuss each of the applicants. I would say that the more emphasis is placed on the proposal, so the research proposal or the proposal about why the student wants to have an ETA, there's less of an emphasis on GPA and grades. You know, you have to definitely include your transcript, but as a reviewer myself, I would always just really skim past that. And I can even remember a time when the campus did not recommend the student for a Fulbright. So we've talked a little bit how you will have a campus committee that will form and we'll do an interview, and that the goal of that is to strengthen your application even further. And then we all sign off on it and we say, we highly recommend this person for a Fulbright. Well, I was on a committee one year where they did not recommend this person for a Fulbright. And so that was a little bit of a red flag for us, but we thought the proposal was so good, we just went ahead and recommended it. And you know, I don't know after it left our hands if that person ended up getting their Fulbright or not, but we were so compelled by it, and we were so amazed at the connections that this person had managed to create and build for themselves for the research that we wanted to support it. So, but I would say as well, just, you know, the strength of the proposal, your narrative, what it is you're wanting to do, why you need to be in the country to do that thing. I can think of a couple of other examples that might be useful. Sometimes students are applying to study in a graduate program abroad. So I remember a couple of instances where students were applying to a UK school to study animation, and they wrote specifically about the faculty that are you know, teaching in this school, how it's a globally famous school, and there's a way in which the type of animation that they were doing could only be developed further if they studied directly with this person. And then, you know, you can see that they've done the research, that the student knows something about the faculty at that school, and then we're able to look at the sample and see, yes, you know, as described in the proposal and as reflected in the student's work, you know, it's pretty clear that they need to connect with this famous animator artist and get their MA from this program. So we're looking for, you know, very specific things that let us understand why you need to be in the country to do what you want to do. I would say if that connection isn't strong or clear, then it's the proposal is really not as strong in competing with others, if that makes sense. Do you all have any specific questions for me?
Well, we'll see if they do a little bit later, but it's moving through quickly. Okay. Thank you so much. So here's the general application timeline. I say general because this is like the national timeline, and then we have our own timeline, which I'll get to in a second. So the application will open we're thinking March 31st, April 1st. And that's when you'll see all the new offerings, what's available for this upcoming competition. And you can kind of search through and see what's the best fit for you. August to September, our campus deadline will be in August. And then sometime in early to mid-October will be the national application deadline. What happens next is they have the national screening committees meet here domestically in the US, used to be in New York, but it's all virtual now. And your application will be reviewed by 3 different people. They will not be in your field. I think Dr. Purcell's mentioned that. So you want to be able to pitch your application to like, a general college educated audience. And they will make a decision about who they want to recommend to be sent to the host country selection process. So things are different now because of COVID and numbers of awards available, but generally about 50% of the applicants get recommended to the host country. And so the host country review happens between January and May. So you'll find out in January if you've been recommended, so if you're a semifinalist or not. And they make the final decisions in the host country. And that is something worth noting because you have to pitch your application to 2 very different audiences in some way. So some things that you may say about a host country, maybe the National Screening Committee thinks, oh, okay, that's fair, that's fine. But then the host country people will read it and say, no, that's a generalization, or we don't like that, or that's not necessarily true. So you have to be, mindful of those things as you're working on your application. And that's why we have our committee meetings, because we will have a country expert, country/language expert, a discipline expert, and then your FPA, and then one of us will be there. So you're going to be evaluated and observed by lots of different people. So we're hoping to cover all of our bases to make sure that your application is sound. And then final selection and notification takes place in the springtime. So we're going to start finding out pretty soon, this month to June, about who our recipients are. And then you'll go abroad beginning in the spring of 2022. Some programs, particularly those in South America, will begin probably in the 2023, like January 2023. So yeah, between the summer and then will be the start date. Anything anyone wants to add about the timeline? No? Okay. All right, so what do we do? What does the process look like at USC? So our office, here are all of our team members in the National Fellowships Office. These are not our faculty, FPAs. All of their information will be on the timeline that you guys will receive as a follow-up to this workshop. So take a look at that. But our team, our office, we are here to help you. We want to make your application as strong as possible and answer any questions that we possibly can. We are in communication with the Fulbright program representatives. We ask them questions. They give us hints and tips of things that, they like to see, what they don't like to see. I know someone asked about COVID. How has COVID impacted all of this? We don't know how it will impact this upcoming application. It has changed a lot, like I said, from our 10 students who won for the 2020-2021 year. Many of them were not able to participate, or their programs got pushed back. So they decided to, kind of go a different route. But I think we have 5 of them who are currently abroad. So they did make it abroad. They are supported by Fulbright. Our students who were abroad when the pandemic broke out were called back, and Fulbright has worked with them to kind of help them, readjust. We had a research grantee who had to come back, and he was able to get some of his funding back. Again, country by country, that is not going to be the same across the board. But in general, they have been really good with communicating with us about what they're doing and how things are changing. But with everything with the pandemic, we can't say we know what's going to happen. But what we can do is support you through the application process, talk to you about your interests, see what makes the most sense for you, work on the application. So even after you get assigned to FPA, we will be happy to meet with you and talk with you about your materials as well. We have our Blackboard that's not on here. I didn't add that as a bullet point, but once you complete the preliminary application, you'll be added to Blackboard, which has past recipients' essays, hints and tips. Our different workshops that we have will be uploaded. Stuff about how to obtain a letter of affiliation, those kinds of things will all be in there for you to access. We will put together your committees in the fall for the campus committee evaluation. And then for some of you, if you're a semifinalist and you are invited to an interview, we can kind of help you with that as well. Oops, this seems a little smushed, but here are the next steps. If you're planning to get started this application cycle, this is what you need to do. Meet with one of us to discuss your interests. You can make an appointment with us via Navigate. If you are a recent graduate or a graduate student, you can email us, and our contact will be on one of the next slides to set up an appointment. But through Navigate, you will go under Involvement and Engagement, National Fellowship Advising, and then you'll see us all there. Yes, can I start working on the application for I am a graduating senior? What year are you? If you don't mind me asking. So you're a freshman, oh my goodness. I would say that's a little early. We say it's never too early, but generally junior spring is the time to get started to think about those things, mostly because you haven't had all of your experiences yet. So you want to be able to get those experiences in. If you're a freshman or sophomore who's just in the thought process like, oh, I might want to apply for this in the future, things that you can do is keep track of your experiences that are relevant. You know, if you're planning to study abroad and you want to, you know, make connections in that country while you're there, plan for that. Be mindful of the classes that you're taking. If you're an honors student, you're doing honors thesis, maybe think about how that can be incorporated into a research grant or something. If you're doing research on campus, maybe think about how that could be incorporated into a research proposal. Yeah, Elizabeth, yes, you're graduating this May. And yeah, you can apply. So you can apply as long as you don't have a PhD in hand. So graduate students, recent graduates, early career professionals, so you don't even have to be matriculated to apply, and we will still work with you. Yes. So after you meet with one of us to talk about your interest, go to the Fulbright website and choose your country and grant type. You have to choose one country and one grant type. You cannot apply to multiple, so make sure it is the right one for you. After you make that choice, you can complete your preliminary application, which you guys will get a link to that after this as well. And in that preliminary application, you're just telling us your ideas. It's a brainstorming activity pretty much. So where you think you want to go, what you think you want to do, what type of grant, what experiences you think you can draw on or talk about in your application. After we get your preliminary application, we will add you to Blackboard. That's your ticket into our Blackboard for our Fulbright resources. And then we will assign you a faculty Fulbright program advisor. So once we get that, we will look at your prelim and see who is probably the best fit for you to work with. We'll assign them to you. You'll send you an email with their name and contact. You'll reach out to them and get the ball rolling. From there, you will work with them over the summer, come to our summer writing workshops, meet the deadlines, and they'll give you feedback on your essays, that kind of thing throughout the summer. And then you will submit a complete application by August 18th, which is the day before classes start. And then after that, we will have the campus committee evaluation process, which will happen probably the month of September. Maybe even start in August. We did pretty well with that this last cycle. So yeah, between August and September. And then, you know, you work on your application materials after you get feedback from that process, and you will hit submit by the national deadline. in October. We don't have the exact date yet, but once we know it, we will update all of our information to reflect that date. So that's the process. Any questions? Here's our general contact information. I'm happy to share my personal contact information as well. Yeah, I also wanted to unshare and show you what the Fulbright website looks like. And I understand it's right at 5 o'clock, so for those of you who have to get going, no worries there. I'm just gonna go ahead and go to the Fulbright website just to show you how to navigate it and just so you all can see how different each program looks and what they offer. So I'm gonna go back and share my screen if possible. Screen 2. Let's go with that one. Screen 2. Are you able to see the
I have a
All right.
question.
Yes.
When you were, it was like the second to last slide, when you were talking about the timeline, you said that I guess like the program would start in January.
So the program will probably start between summer of 2022
Mm-hmm.
January of 2023. So the January starts are typically for South American countries, but most of them will start in the summer or fall of 2022. So right after you graduate, if you're a junior right now.
Okay.
So the Fulbright website, lots of great information here. Countries, does anyone have any countries that they want to point out? I don't know who is interested in going where, but just so you can get an idea of how different each country is and what they offer. Let's see. Let's go to East Asia and the Pacific. I always like to look at Taiwan because Taiwan has a crazy amount of awards available. So Taiwan, for example, has lots of different grants. They have 145 ETAs, and they have a bunch of master-specific programs. Tons and tons and tons. Then they even have something that's a debate coach trainer award. They have doctoral grants, and then they also have the Open Study Research Awards. So when you go to the page, make sure you click and look to see what each program is describing. So accepted degree levels. You want to look at the bachelor's level if you're a current junior who will be applying their senior year. Grant period, they'll tell you when it's going to start. Again, these haven't been updated for the next application cycle yet, so check back April 1st and that information should be updated. And they'll tell you, okay, so this says master's and PhD students are preferred. Okay, but graduating seniors or recent graduates will be considered. So this is something to keep in mind. If you're like, oh, I don't know, I'm okay with maybe going to another country, I'm not dead set on Taiwan, then maybe you want to go for a country that doesn't have this list here, this line here. But if Taiwan is the best place and it makes the most sense for what you want to do, then it's probably the place you're the most competitive for. They'll have 4 language proficiency requirements listed. They'll tell you what type of proposals that they're accepting. So this one says independent study research, yes. Graduate degree enrollment, no. And that's probably because they have so many grad-specific grants available. Affiliation, they'll talk about what kind of letters of affiliation you need. And that could have to do with, visas, lots of different things from country to country, how they specify what type of letter of affiliation you need. Yes, they give you information about financial information. And then in eligibility, please read this stuff carefully. It is very important information. They also have their own website for Taiwan specifically. Any countries that anyone wants to look at, you can feel free to put it in the chat. Another thing that I'll point out is the country. Okay, so let's show the ETAs, for example. Is this what I'm looking for? Oh my goodness, this is a lot. Okay. Yes. So the ETA looks very, very different from the study research grant. So again, candidate profile, yes, they like recent graduates. Yes, lovely, fantastic. All majors, certified teachers, all this good stuff. They'll tell you the placement type. Some countries will tell you specifically that you have to say where you want to be placed in your essay. So Spain is an example of that. Be sure to look out for that. No Chinese language skills are required. Great. Eligibility. Yes. Yes, that's a great question. So if Fulbright's only lasts for 1 year, but you want to do a 2-year master's, what do you do? Again, it depends. Some countries will say, if you do well the first year, we will fund the second year. Taiwan is an example of that. Other times you're like, you have to self-fund. Another very important piece is that if you are applying for a master's program through Fulbright, you need to apply for that degree program and Fulbright. So Fulbright is the funding mechanism. It is not the way that you apply to that graduate program. So please do keep that in mind, because they have had instances in the past where people have forgotten to apply to the actual degree program and won a Fulbright. So yeah, make sure you cover all your bases and do both. So yes, certain countries, depending on where you go, they will tell you if you have certain conditions, we will not be able to accommodate you. You might have to pass certain medical clearances. Be mindful of that. They'll tell you about certain living conditions that you'll have to be able to live in. Yeah, so I say all this to say, look carefully at the different grants and what they offer, because every place is different. And what they offer is going to look different. So UK, just a bunch of 1-year master's programs. So very different from what Taiwan offered. And then there are some countries that have, yes, Chloe, question.
So I took a look at the website, and it's a little overwhelming in terms of, only being able to apply to one country and one program. Is that something that we could talk about with our advisor, just to explore, like, for example, like I'm a master's student, so I'm graduating this May, so I'm seeing, doctoral programs, but I'm also seeing research, and I speak Spanish, so is that going to be an advantage to me in, these Spanish-speaking countries? Or, there's a lot of opportunity I see, just picking one is complicated. So I wonder if that's something that we discuss with our advisor.
Yes. I think the sound is weird. I don't, okay, it's not doing it anymore. Sorry. So it is hard to choose a country and a program. That is totally fair. We are happy to talk with you about different options, but we do ask that you come with some ideas. If you come to us and say, I just want to go abroad, I want to go anywhere, that's not going to be very helpful or useful information to us, because I don't know you personally, right? I don't know what kind of experience you want. I also don't know all of the different Fulbright countries and program offerings. I mean, they have over 140 different countries. So even if you say, I speak Spanish, that's a lot of the world. And yes, it would be an advantage if you have language skills, of course. But what kind of experience do you want? What do you want to get out of it? And yeah, I think Dr. Kissel said, you need to have a real reason for wanting to go to that specific place over another. So if it's like, I could really go to any Spanish-speaking country and be happy, like, yes, that's fair, but you need to be able to articulate in your application why you want to go to that specific place and do that specific thing. What is it about that place? So if there's a particular area of research that you're interested in, and you're like, where do they do this? Then maybe talk to your like faculty mentors here at USC and get advice from them about like, do you know who does this abroad? Do you have any connections abroad? So I'm thinking about applying for a Fulbright, but I'm not really sure where I want to go. They might be a good place to start in terms of like discipline expertise. And we do know a lot about the different grants in different countries, but we don't know everything. So yes, we will be happy to talk these things through with you, but we need you to come with some kind of information for that to be a fruitful conversation.
Go ahead and get some research started.
Yes, it does take some time. But yeah, I mean, spend time on the website. There's lots of different things, different countries. So yeah, like this one, very tiny. Ivory Coast has 1 English Teaching Assistant Award and 1 Open Study Research Award. So yeah, I'm just doing this to show you that every country is different, what they offer is different. But again, you can go to the website. They may have a commission, or it might just be through the US Embassy. So that makes a difference as well. And we talk about that a little bit more in detail once the application process really starts. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording if anyone has any